and welcome back to Evilly Yours English Book Club episode 1. Oh, I'm so excited for book club.
Yes, we've only been having book clubs for years, but they ended up being quite private book clubs, and they were definitely a way for us to commiserate and still have human relations during the pandemic.
And also because we honestly just enjoy reading, like exercising our minds in fun ways because we're English experts or whatever.
Latin.
And so you might be asking, how are we picking these books? There is no true rhyme or reason, because we like many different genres, but we are using book talk as like some semi inspiration, at least for today's. It was absolutely the inspiration. That's a strong word to describe it. I feel like we were kind of gaslit into picking this. That's just how I feel. But yeah, and some of the other books that we've selected that are on our list are just ones that we just genuinely wanted to read, either like personally or together, because they just seem like fun reads. And I also have a personal goal of reading at least one book a month. So far, I have been keeping to it. So yay, with help from Christina over here. And so yeah, this is book 3 of personal book club, but book 1 for public book club.
The first book we read this year was The House on the Cerulean Sea.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, we loved it. It was fantastic. Highly recommend if you want to hear a recap of it. We can kind of do like a speed through at one point, maybe like a bonus episode. If you've read it, let us know. Tell us what you thought about it. Who's your favorite kid in the house?
Or better yet, which kid you are,
Which kid are you?
because those could
Yep.
be two different things, two different characters.
Facts. So, and then we immediately picked up and we read Prince Harry's book, Spare.
Because we're all about that Royal English tea, baby.
All I'm gonna say is if you've read Spare, let us know what you thought, which part was the most impactful when you were reading it. But also, if you haven't, just know that you should read it because it'll explain why Queen Charles has no guests at his coronation.
Like I mentioned, this book we came across on Book Talk, and by we I mean me, because it had a lot of the buzzwords that I know appeal to Christina. For example, Greek mythology, specifically Hades and Persephone. And I had a feeling she was gonna pick it, and lo and behold, I know.
She did. Yeah, we have an Amazon, like a shared wish list that we have going where we just add books that we're both interested in. And like Claudia mentioned before, there's no criteria for what goes on there. It's just if we think each other will get a kick out of it. Like I would never ask her to read the dictionary or myself, but like that wouldn't be necessarily right, like a viable option. So we've added books that we both might have an interest in.
I'm not saying I'm going to put this on the list, but honestly, there's a lot of tea in the Old Testament. Petty God is. But anyway, we're not here to be blasphemous.
No, we're not today anyway.
I feel like it's safe to say, spoiler alert, if you don't like spoilers, if you want to read this before you start listening, yes, do it, please, because then we can engage, we can talk about it further, and then you'll fully understand where the hell we're coming from with these opinions. But please note, spoiler alert, don't be mad at us that you continued.
So the book that we are going to tell you about that was from Book Talk, we read Neon Gods by Katee Robert.
Each chapter more or less alternates between Hades and Persephone. Sometimes you'll get double Persephones, but that's neither here nor there.
It is number 1 in a series of kind of like modernized, a modern adaptation of mythos.
They're essentially like avatars to the gods and goddesses of Greek mythos, essentially.
Of yesteryear, yes.
And so that doesn't necessarily change their personality as far as I know. But again, there's a lack of depth and complexity. So who am I to say what this author is, trying to portray within these characters. But I don't know, it would have been interesting. Oh, we didn't mention this. Ugh, why are we like this?
But enter somewhere.
So essentially, Persephone, the one of the reasons besides being like over this rich life, is that she is promised to become the next Hera to Zeus. And so Zeus has been known to kill all his Heras. This She would have been like fourth or fifth Hera at this point in the story, if I'm not mistaken. And
Mm-hmm.
she was just like, I ain't gonna be another person on a freaking spike. Like, absolutely not.
She's
And
like, I'm
so,
not a statistic.
no, honey. So she decides to run away. And that is how she ends up crossing the what's the name of the Cypress Bridge, and ending up in Lower City, aka Underworld with Hades. And so it's I like that it's showing that she's thinking for herself, but low key, I wanted to see her become Hera just so I could see like make the comparison to see if truly if like her personality straight up changes, or like her persona changes. That would have added another layer of complexity and depth to this whole thing, because then it becomes, and granted, it's not meant to read as a damsel in distress type story that she needs saving, because they essentially kind of save one another. So yay equality, but also I think that added a further layer to the story, because you see the difference between the two, and that would have given, I think, more of a motivation for Hades to kill Zeus, besides Zeus killing his parents in a fire, which don't have much information on how this fire was started, if Zeus directly started it, if one of his boys started it. Hell, maybe one of the 13 started it. I don't know.
I think with reading more of them, maybe some of the plot points and the structures in this society might make a little more sense. But for me, as someone who, a lot of what got me through middle school was kind of Greek myth and showing my age, like Tumblr and DeviantArt and going through all those live journal things, fan fiction, so I spent a lot of time in ancient history, religions, and spirituality. Anywho, these stories have always been really important to me, Greek myths, because you can see them spun in new ways throughout the rest of history, throughout the rest of time, especially after, classical revolutions and the Renaissance. And a lot of our archetypes are derived from these stories.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of my favorite stories has always been that of Hades and Persephone, with my little flower crown here representing Queen of the Spring.
I wouldn't say my knowledge of Greek mythology is as immersive and in depth as Christina's. I do have an appreciation of these stories. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was inspired by Disney's Hercules, for many, many reasons. And I already know that it's a very like bastardized version of, of Greek mythology, but it did allow me to kind of like dive a little bit deeper. And even then, I know that I'm at surface level. So I'm going to be learning so much about Greek mythology today from Christina, as y'all are. So Hades comes off as Major Sad Boy. He is in the lower part of Olympus, whereas Zeus and the other Greek gods are in Upper Olympus, where Persephone lives. And Persephone really, really is not about this life. So much so she wants to escape Olympus. And yeah, she finds a way to escape to some extent.
All right, so where do we even start? So essentially, it is meant to be a like futuristic maybe retelling of this story of how the seas. So what Persephone is the seasons, right? So she represents when she goes and she descends to be with her husband in the underworld. That is the onset of winter, right? The period of time where she's getting ready to go, she's packing her things, that's autumn. After winter, she comes back up, all the green starts to come out, the flowers start to bloom again. People are happy, and then we have summer where it's the height of her visitation back on Earth, right? She starts off in mythos as a goddess of like the harvest. Her mother's Demeter, so like literally they're on mortal grounds, working with fields, working with crops, and fertility is like a vibe too. And in myth, yes, yes,
Also,
student,
in Hades Town on Broadway, they do a really good interpretation of Persephone and like
ma'am.
a girl, teach.
The summary is just that basically she is, before she's the queen of the underworld, she is literally sowing the seeds on Earth, and everything's beautiful and vegetation is flourishing, and all the other gods think she's beautiful and they're so into her. That is Hermes, that is Apollo, that is everybody, right? So then our poor emo dark sad boy in the underworld, what goddess wants to condemn the rest of her life to being his queen amongst the more like the endless eternal souls of gloom and doom, right? And his yes.
Every girl loves them a sad boy.
But that's the thing. The ancient Greeks, they were all about like the Hercules, the Zeus. They wanted that big masculine man, and Hades was sent there. They were like, bro, this is where you go. You're gonna just reign over the dead. Ain't nobody gonna talk to you. You can go hang out with the fates when you're bored. Go look at the past and the future, and just that's it. And you're gonna go train the ghosts when they get here for their eternal work, whatever they're gonna be doing, right? So like sidebar, the levels of hell is a Roman thing, like past Roman Empire, like Dante Inferno thing. So we're not going to talk about Inferno levels right now. OG Hades, basically lonely, sad, dark, catches a glimpse of this beautiful woman sculpting the earth, and he's like, bingo, that's the one. She doesn't have a choice, steals her from the earth and brings her down. So some other events take place, and ultimately, he strikes up a deal with the other Olympians that Persephone will spend some time with him, and then the rest of the year above Earth, and that is reflected in this number of pomegranate seeds that she consumes with him. So in myth, he is essentially, there's some stories will have it that she was like abducted, and others will have it where she maybe more so consented. So one thing I do appreciate about the storyline is her ultimate descent into the underworld was with consent, right? Like she agreed to be there, and she was able to create a relationship with our sad dark boy, King of the Underworld.
Both of these characters, at least within the novel, are sad people, just
Yes.
to different degrees and different reasons. Because the way that Persephone is portrayed in this, she's like rich girl who doesn't want this life anymore. She just wants to be a regular, degular girl.
Yep.
Living a regular life out in California. At least I'm pretty sure she mentioned California. If not, that's where I'm placing her.
She said she wanted to go to like Stanford or something.
Okay, cool.
Berkeley. That she wants to go to college in California. Okay, whatever.
She's looking for the college California, such a lovely place. Whereas Hades has been dealt, for lack of a better term, a really shit deal. No pun intended, since he's like the man of deals, essentially. And so much so that he wears a black on black suit.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been really given a shit hand at life. And so I'm not trying to compare everybody's sad stories, because I do think that both are justifiable ish. Because it's great to want more than what you got, having something with more depth, because at least for Persephone, like she's having a lot of superficial interactions, and so to see her have a deeper connection with Hades than one that she's had within the upper city is dope. I like that for her, because that's something that she craves. And then Hades just wants a relationship, period. Because sad boy.
Like I think that angle was a good retelling, and it also makes you not want to hate on him so much. Again, to the ancient Greeks, this was their god of the afterlife, so he does what he wants. He's a king, right? There was no, her abduction was like, obviously he's going to do it eventually. He just had to find the right person to condemn to endless eternal hell with him. But for us, in our retelling, I think most retellings want it to be less of an abduction. The fact that he is death and she is life, that is why they are fatefully meant to be intertwined. And I think, when you've had your chance to experiment with everybody and then you come to this fateful, they're not star-crossed, right? They're fatefully meant to be together. I think that really added to it. So that I like the setup of the relationship in the story in their modern retelling of, Hades in a suit and Persephone in a skin tight dress that grazes over her curves or whatever. Because what else was in this book, y'all? Smut.
Although I do feel that it could have been spicier, it could have been smitier. Ah, that's not to say that what's in here isn't good, at least in terms of like the smut. If you want an easy read, easy smutty, like fun read, she's good. But she's good for what she is, but I don't know.
In original myths, of course, everything that's part of a story is going to have a very deep meaning that explains something going on in the universe that the ancient Greeks understood, right? So that's why, like, Persephone being away was winter, being dead because she's literally in hell where the dead are. She has her own symbol, which is the pomegranate. This was my origin story for pomegranates.
I never knew pomegranates existed until after school snack, and I was just like, what do I do with this?
Hand to forehead.
I just sucked on the flesh around the seed, and then both of us would just put them in a bowl because we were gross like that. But anyway, I'm happy you had Greek mythology to introduce pomegranates to you.
Yeah, so my dad used to give me them, so I would be really excited as a kid, like, oh, this is what the contract was based on in this story. Anyway, contract being she consumes 4 seeds, and once you accept and you eat from the underworld, you cannot leave permanently. So 4 months is what she spends underground.
Also, fun fact, pomegranates, aphrodisiac. So it kind of, I'm not saying within the context of the story it makes
Claudia,
sense.
why don't you go on? So explain how pomegranate is then used in our modernized version of the story.
So, again, spicy book. There's going to be a lot of things, and one of them is consent, and another one is safe words. And her safe word is, you guessed it, pomegranate.
And now ask us, how many times does she need to use the safe word?
Never, because she consents
Never.
to everything. There is, so okay, I will.
Who knew we'd be so mad?
So I'm not saying that I wanted her to be driven outside of her boundaries, but I think adding that safe word there outside of it just being like, oh my god, this was in Greek mythology, it would have been great to see her actually utilize it to kind of like normalize that. And like, granted, everything that is sexy and smutty that is done, it is with consent. It is done with at least a discussion, a conversation. But I think it would have been a great thing to add to them getting to know one another if she actually utilizes the safe word once, so that he knows that there is some sort of boundary. And again, not trying to sex shame anybody. And so I would have liked to have seen that, because I think that would have added an extra layer to their relationship. Although they do deeply connect to one another, it just feels very sudden, and at the start seems very Stockholm syndrome-y.
Yes, I was gonna say, the original abduction story and then this retelling reminds me a lot of Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
And that's absolutely, like, again, like, these are archetypes, right? The really smart, cheeky damsel who's trying to escape her provincial life. Granted, Olympus is not provincial, but whatevs. They eat ambrosia. Like, hello. Belle was eating carrots and pawn from the boulangerie, so whatever.
She had porridge too.
It's not very good.
So she goes off into the woods, right? Persephone's off in the woods in the fields. And Belle, I guess she wanders into the cat. No, yeah, she hides. She wanders in by accident. So it's not that the beast steals her. She's hiding from the wolves, right?
Oh. Well, yes, kind of. So essentially that's when Philippe comes back without Papa. And so she goes out with Philippe to go find Papa. So Papa was the one that was basically thrown. Oh yeah,
Mm.
also guys love Disney if I wasn't clear about that. So Papa was led to the Beast Castle via wolves, whereas Belle was led there with the horse because the horse was like, "Girl, this is where shit went down." And then she was like, "Whoa, there's a big ass castle. Okay." And then that's where she's like, "Take me instead." And here we are, Stockholm syndrome.
So that makes me wonder. So you know how fairy tales by Disney are always smoothed out a little? Like
That
Cinderella's sisters never lose their eyes to the
yeah.
ravens, right?
And you know the witch in Snow White doesn't get her feet burned off.
Ma'am. So I'm curious
Curious.
if in the original French version, if the beast abducts Belle. So I'm gonna look that up in a second, but it's still very much giving hell. Like this beautiful, looking for a change lady gets uh taken in. So she goes and she's seeking sanctuary. So that's again different. And that's what reminds me of this modern retelling of Hades and Persephone. She's taken in for safety reasons. She's escaping a bad situation, just like Belle is escaping the woods on her miserable journey looking for her dad. And then she's with the beast, who's also a sad boy who's been condemned to a place. Same story.
Oh, exactly.
Um,
Just less sex, I would imagine.
I mean, we don't really know. Um, we don't. We Disney left that out. Disney just left that out.
They
So
were just like, nobody's gonna think of that. But anyway, digressions occurred. Uh, and I just okay. The other issue, here's the other issue that I have, at least with the setting of this. I don't love that we're not in the underworld. Like I understand, like we're crossing the river Styx, right?
oh Lord.
And like I like that they are stating that the only way to not feel harm when at least this is how I interpreted it. The only way to not feel harm when crossing either the bridges over the river Styx is to be invited by Hades. And so I like that because, but like once you're inside lower Olympus, as they called it, like just first of all, label it the underworld. It's fine. It's okay. Because if you think about it, it would have made more sense to call it underworld only because it's sitting underneath what the gods are considering the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't really understand the structure of the city, and like I know all the gods, the Olympians are in these quote unquote legacy roles, but I don't really get it, especially when like Berkeley University exists in the same realm. I
I'm
just like I'm used to Game of Thrones. Like I'm here for the like extra like political plot. Like I want to know more. I don't just want to hear that Zeus has affairs and kills his wives. Like I want to know more. What political party he belongs to. I want to know what nonsense he does in Congress. Like how does he manipulate everybody else to agree with him? Like I need those things.
I agree with her choice of not including that within this solely because this is meant to like surround or circle around Hades and Persephone, not necessarily Zeus. Like that might be a separate
That was an
installment.
example.
So okay. And we
Also, what
also
does
get
Hades do?
what?
Nobody's dead. Nobody's dead. What is he doing?
He's taking care of Lower City, okay? Let sad boy be sad in Lower City with his sex dungeon parties, okay? Let him.
What? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't check out. It's just so. I'm not trying to shade this series since I know Book Talk loves it. I just don't get like I don't get it. Like government is important and those dynamics are what why he's there. Like who is he why is he protecting these people? I don't understand what happens on this River Styx bridge. Like
There's
anywho,
a lot left unexplained. And I think just to bring it back to the symbols, I think if maybe there
Lord.
was more symbolism utilized, then we would have more of these questions. We would have more depth. And for me, that's what was lacking in these characters.
Depth.
Like, and again, granted, it's smut. I'm gonna be straight up. This is my first smut book, okay? Like straight up. My first smutty book. Ooh, I enjoy gray characters, meaning characters that have moralities that are blurred, that they believe that they are doing the right thing, even to like an outside person, it's a shit thing that they're doing. Like,
Mm.
I need that. I want that. I crave that. That's what makes me like enjoy a book truly. Or even then, like, if you're going to be a hero, be a complex hero. Don't just be a trope of a hero. Like, don't just be like, hello, I am here to save you because that's what author told me to do. Tell me why you want to be a hero. Were you bullied? Were you like what was going on there? And like, I feel that if she incorporated more symbols, it would have added more complexity to these characters, to the world itself, even. Um, and I also think that if maybe if it wasn't a dual perspective, I think that if this was written in like an omniscient narration, we'd have more on what's going on with Zeus. What's or like even if it's like a Game of Thrones esque thing that it's like you're getting a
Everyone.
chapter, a different perspective every single time, and I don't know. I think that would have we would have benefited. We probably would have had less smut though, so there's that.
Primary purpose of this series is to be Greek myth smut. I get it. Like, we all know it's there. It's just never explicitly taught. Of course, when we're in school and like learning about these stories, it's when you're in 2006 and you're going on fanfiction.net and you find the smut.
Or
That's
Zanga.
when you realize, or Zanga, and then you're like, oh, of course, Zeus is out here having 17,000 children because he's an adulterer by our definition of what that is. Maybe he was polyamorous, Zeus. We like they're gods, right? So the ancient Greeks are looking at their gods, they're doing whatever they want, but like rein it in as a human, you're gonna die one day anyway. And then you have to decide, are you gonna go to Hades or are you gonna go somewhere else?
So talk to me about how you feel about Hades, girl.
So he's one of my favorites because he's just like you can interpret him sort of gray. Like he didn't ask for his eternal infinite fate. And he does it diligently and he's lonely. And no ancient Greek would have built a temple to pray to him because everyone's gonna see him anyway one day when you die. So nobody wants to think about him in their lifetime. So nobody thinks about him. He's just sad in the ghost town. You know what I mean?
Literal.
Luckily, he has his dogs, which I'm glad the dogs came up in the story.
I'm sad that they weren't three-headed though.
Yeah. So sidebar, we get 3 dogs to represent 3-headed heads of Cerberus, except one gets named Cerberus, and then we get 2 other like demon gorgon monster names. One of them, Charybdis, is like a sea monster that causes like Odysseus to go off course.
So like a
I forgot the other one. Yes, thank you. It's like a whirlpool sea monster. And I'm like, what does that have to do with dogs? But you see, this is another angle of just like there's so many ways to make like stories overlap or like to symbolically implement different things, but then just to like we have the 3 dogs represent the 3 heads, but one is Cerberus and then one is Charybdis and the other one is the other monster I can't think of right now. It's because there's no magic in this world, and that makes the river Styx bridge crossing, I feel pressure, even more confusing because like what's happening if there's no magic in this world? Anyway, so our boy he's still dark. He's still sad.
It's Charybdis
Scylla.
and Scylla. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Scylla is the whirlpool monster. No, Scylla was Scylla's actually she was a nymph or some kind of female form who was transformed in a vengeful act.
They are both. They were later localized in the Strait of Messina.
That's part of his quest is to not die while passing through them. So I also like okay.
Talk to me. Talk to me, girl.
So Odysseus is one of the people who actually in some retellings enters the underworld and leaves unscathed, like Orpheus, like Hercules, like I think Perseus. Excuse me one second.
I feel like that would check out.
Sorry, Theseus, not Perseus. Perseus slays Medusa.
Oh yeah,
and that's it. Those are the only people who somehow enter, and Persephone who comes and goes as she pleases. fatty.
Yeah.
Everybody else goes in and that's it. You did. Like, you're not coming back out. So I have 3 dogs with threatening names guarding the entryway, I guess was the idea behind it.
Oh,
But
cute little puppies.
yeah, but right now they're just cute little puppies. So nothing threatening. And also, like, they're not water dogs. Like, she didn't say they were like Portuguese water dogs or something, or Labradors, which, like, maybe that would make a lot of sense if you then named them after water monsters. Who am I? Who am I?
Mm, ain't shit.
Apparently. The dog thing, great. It makes sense. He's alone with Cerberus, right? Um, alone with these ghosts, alone with the Fates, alone with Taryn. Uh, oh, the other people in the underworld.
Who?
uh, no,
Hermes
so
Dionysus?
that was so random. I don't in my conscious efforts could not recall why Dionysus would be in hell. Hermes is a messenger and they have to go back and forth. So that makes sense. They communicate everything to everyone.
Right.
And also Hermes plays a role in delivering mortals into hell. Place where the dead mortal soul goes. There's like a beach where then Hermes like welcomes them. I can't think of what it is.
I mean, with Dionysus. I'm sorry, I'm putting the wrong
Either way.
emphasis.
Oh my god.
Meh. So with Dionysus, I feel, you know, coming back to my Catholic education,
Yes.
he technically, and correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he like the god of like wine or like the god of like
Mhm.
gluttony essentially?
Yep.
So I mean, that's I guess why he could
Yeah, like
go
the sinful aspect. But then our Dionysus isn't even sinful. He's just like,
drunk most of the time, and a
but he's
chauffeur.
not even. He's a chauffeur. He's the chauffeur. He brings Hermes to the door where she sneaks into Hades' house. What? I don't get it.
I
It was lost on me.
In the end, again,
Oh.
you were warned. If you got this far, this is all your own damn fault. Um, Hades kills Zeus by allowing him to fall through a window. A large.
Interesting phrasing.
But listen, Hades attempted. The hand was there. The other hand went whoop, and I don't know if he gripped or not. I don't. Maybe he was clammy after holding that gun to Zeus's head. I don't know. But
Yeah, intent was present.
intent was present, but like I don't love that that's how Zeus dies. I don't love that he dies so quickly because that seems very mortal. Um
Well,
and
that's the thing. They are mortals.
right, but again, there's just a lot of lacking areas that prevent me from loving this.
I think overall, you know, if you're gonna rework a story, so many authors have just completely change their names, do inspired by, make her Hera, like you mentioned earlier, and then see what happens from there. Like, but if you're gonna make it like a retelling and then just change all these elements so it's still not the same story, I don't know. I just felt so jolting. I was so jolted by it all.
It's more of an homage rather than a retelling.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that would have been a better branding and marketing for this particular story, and I would assume likely for the whole series.
It's hard to find like non-cringy retellings of myth because there's so much open space up for interpretation, as this book is up to interpretation, but like sticking to the lines, the boundaries is crucial. So it makes sense,
Yeah.
with the end being the most upsetting actually to me. I don't know if we're ready to go there yet.
Oh, we can go.
The epilogue.
Well, before we get to the
Yeah. I hated the epilogue. Hated it.
don't get me wrong. The smutty scenes, they're smutty and they're hot, they're nice. Like who hasn't envisioned doing it in the shadows while people are watching? Maybe, I don't know. I'm not saying that it was me. I'm just saying people do. Because that's none of y'all business. My point is they were hot, and that was great. I just wish that like that level of concern and care was put into adding layers to, or adding like layers of mythos into the story that is meant to be a retelling of the mythos.
Like you mentioned before, the whole like Hades versus Zeus was only in his perspective did he have like a personal vendetta against him, and it wasn't really explored that much. But we were just like told he has this trauma. But like getting to have see that unfold more would have made him so much more gray, because he does end up being responsible for this death, but then like it you see both all the sides of it, you know.
And also like I think there are so many things left unexplored with this Hades Persephone story that like this alone probably could have been like 3 books. If she played it right, it could have just been 3 books of Hades and Persephone's story. Um Also, I'm intrigued because it's called Neon Gods, right? But usually at some point the title like comes into
Ma'am,
the
that was my
story
closing
itself.
question.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I go. I was gonna say, anyone listening to this who has read it, what does the title mean?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like neon because they're hot? Like
Deadly because neon gases are deadly. I don't
I'm it's because their love's so bright. I don't know. Like I didn't get like what that meant.
right? Like a neon. I don't know. I so because like with House on the Cerulean Sea, like it literally is in the first 10 chapters that Arthur uses that phrasing to describe the house that is sitting upon the Cerulean Sea. Harry, in Harry's book, he will often say, "Air, spare, spare, spare. I am said."
Constantly.
Yay, you know who else is a spare? Ooh, auntie. Like, spare constantly comes up, right? Neon Gods has not shown up but once in this damn, like, near 400 word, like, and it annoys me.
And it was like it was also established early on that they weren't gods.
Correct. Like, they're not
mortal.
gods.
Just like what's going on? Like, okay, do you mean gods like rich people, like the ivory tower, like the 2%, the gods of mortal realm? Okay, sure, but then why are they neon? I don't think of neon like that. When I think of neon, I think of Times Square, and I want to run away.
Times Square is mostly LEDs at this point, not neon.
True, true. Yeah, nothing's neon. Neon's toxic. And this wasn't, they're not toxic. They're the best relationship. He doesn't cheat on her. Like,
Really?
that
I
was.
think of like Red Light District. So maybe that's where they were going. I don't know.
Ooh.
Maybe that literally just popped up now. I don't.
But they're
even
in the dark
then,
in the den.
but even then, that's a stretch. I mean, then if they're having sex like this, I mean, it makes sense why he's not going around cheating like Zeus. I'm just saying.
For the smut, 10 out of 10. For the story, not 10 out of 10.
The ending. Why?
Okay. Okay. So my gripe with the epilogue is he is so infatuated, obsessed with her. He doesn't want to share her. That is why she's supposed to go up and then come back down and go up and come back down in a cyclic motion.
Yeah.
How are you sharing her naked in this den? And that's fine for everyone to watch.
That's her fantasy. She wants to be part of his world, okay?
This is not the Little Mermaid.
Well, it's already Beauty and the Beast. Why can't it be the Little Mermaid too?
It's just all of them. Let's just put all of the princesses into one sassy lady who wants to be claimed on a stage.
You know what? I'm also surprised that you didn't bring up, my friend.
What?
Her sisters.
Oh God.
I just wanted to get you riled up and pissed. That's why.
All I have to say is on page 7, wherever it was, where she mentions her sisters, 3 sisters,
I'm here.
her sisters Psyche, Callisto, and Eurydice. I had to, well, I was reading a digital version, so I couldn't like physically close the book, so I shut my screen for a second because I was so infuriated by that take. Let's just start with she's a goddess of the seasons. Those 3, I think Callisto has a like a demi title. The other 2 are mortal. Psyche is immortal. In fact, the whole premise of her issue with Eros is he's a god and she's immortal. Eurydice is immortal. Orpheus has to go rescue her from hell because she's immortal. That's part of it. She can die.
I do remember you mentioning that like the basic traits are there for these characters minus the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So like Callisto, right?
Yeah.
Fights mother with a ferocity. Ooh, she's spicy. She's like she gonna punch a bitch. And then we have where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Persephone forces herself to be part of the bright, sparkly daughter who is always obedient. Psyche plays it cool and quiet as she flies under the radar. Eurydice clings to every bit of life and excitement she can find with a borderline desperation. So at least like and then my other side of Greek mythos comes from Hadestown, which I've only seen once, but we're working on the second time. At least from what the way Eurydice was portrayed there in Hadestown, was that closer to how she is in the myths themselves, within the mythology?
She is just immortal, so she doesn't really have much of a story in myth. She's just like a girl who, like, Orpheus is the son of a muse, so he's got obviously that magic quality. He's technically not fully human. So when he wants her, she's like, I'm going with it, which is where we get like our Eurydice in the show. She's like, okay, well, he's bringing spring. Like, I need some good in my life. So I think that's where they got that element from. But she didn't really have much of a background except she's just some random mortal.
I just think that these two interpretations of her are so starkly different.
Oh gosh, so different. The only like thing we know about her is she is on their wedding day, she's advancing towards him to marry him, and then a viper jumps out of the grass, bites her, and she dies instantly. So her death drives him like to go rescue her, try to rescue her from hell. That's really the kind of most we know about her. And the fact that she had such beauty that he was just like, your name is like a melody, right? Like,
thank you.
Yeah, serenade.
And like, so then I come, now that I'm comparing, I just as many were introduced to Disney Hades versus and I don't know. I love me a Hades that has a touch of Jewish in him, that he's talking about having a bit of moussaka stuck in his throat, or like I love the dryness, I love the sarcasm, and like I get it. I get it. He's supposed to be sad boy. But why can't he be spicy sad boy? Like spicy attitude sad boy.
He's absolutely like a really miserable guy in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, who like has one girl he really likes who lives in Westchester County, and he doesn't have a car. That's Hades in Disney's Hercules, and that checks out. It's still a sad, sassy, angry person from New York City. I don't know why that works, but it does.
See, I don't know. Okay.
And the R train isn't working, so he can't go anywhere. So he's just stuck in hell. And then guess what? When he looks at the water, he sees New Jersey.
And then the next train that's closest to him is the G train, which is useless.
Oh! Where does that take him? And he's never invited. He's not invited to family affairs because he lives so far away, deep in Bensonhurst. He chose to put himself there, which he
Right.
didn't. But you know how families can be. I think he still gives what we want him to, what he should be giving, because he's been stuck there by himself. And also, our Disney Hercules, he had no wife. She hadn't been born yet. We don't have the seasons yet, apparently, in Disney's Hercules, so that's fine.
You're right. You're right. But circling back, just a disclaimer. Yes, I do know that the voice character of Hades in Disney's version is a piece of shit. I will fully admit that. Very like ridiculous.
Oh,
So I will be the first to say that. However, I will say that his portrayal is chef's kiss. I'm sorry. I hate to be that guy, especially given this flag that's behind me. I know that he's a Trump supporter. I'm so sorry.
also realized recently that I've never watched Disney's Descendants. Have you?
No, but I'm intrigued.
So there's a portrayal of him in there, apparently,
I'm
played
tickled.
by an actor that we like, or we would like more. Do you remember 30 Rock when the actor joins? It's Cheyenne Jackson. And Jimmy or Johnny or something. And
Yeah, he was 30 Rock playing Danny Baker.
Danny, thank you. I was like, Johnny, Jimmy, something like that. I'm curious because I just feel like it's hard to get right.
I'm not, we talked about the ending. So something that I liked that they did was also talking about good habits. And this made you cringe, all right? And I get it. Understand. Should like would normal people be like, do you want to can we not use condoms? I have an IUD. It's fine. No, like I am not condoning unprotected sex with or without an IUD. I'm not condoning that at all. However, I do like that that conversation is included to some facet to further show a discussion of boundaries. Because again, if you're going to engage in any sort of like sexual relationship, any sort of like BDSM, any sort of smutty fantasy portrayal, if you will, these conversations need to be had. Again, I liked that it was included. I would have also liked other things to have been included with these good habits. Again, the actual utilization of a safe word versus the we've established what the safe word is, and she's like, I'm never gonna use it though because I want it all. I want all the sex in the world.
Yeah, I think it'd been like a good model too to see how it could be used because, like you said, the rest of the habits were and the consent were so well crafted. Like it was like this is what this should look like, like a healthy relationship.
And I also enjoyed seeing like a power dynamic because like the way that she was portraying Hades is that he's like a dom and a dominant, I'm sorry. And she was a sub submissive. And so what's actually playing out is because of all the consent, because of all the green lights or like the traffic lights that they need to go to in order to do any sort of sexy things, is that she, the sub, actually has the most power to say like, honey, no, we're not doing that, or like, no, pomegranate, I'm not about this. See, that would be a great utilization. Next time I'll try not to sound like Kevin Hart when I say that, when he says pineapples. If you know, you know. I liked that play around power, and I think that Miss Robert over here, she did a really good job in displaying the actual power that a submissive within a dom sub relationship has. Um, and I think she could have also applied this with Hades and Zeus.
Um,
I
yes.
feel like that dynamic is also just lacking. Um,
So I think he calls her a brat.
yes, he absolutely does.
So essentially, that would then make her like not real, like she gets what she wants.
So I also am curious to know what Hades' safe word is.
Yeah,
Because
I just
everyone
I wanted to know so much more about his sad, sad self, and it just wasn't giving.
I will say that I do think that it inspired a lot of fan fiction smut, which is
Mm,
great. We love
hmm.
inspo because of all the missing gaps within it. It allows
Lots to fill in.
lots of crevices to be filled. Sorry, had to. Y'all are gonna realize that out of the two of us, I'm more of the crude one. I am who I am.
And we stand.
Now it's all about balance, baby. Um, was this one of the faster like paces that I've maintained with a book that is more than a play? Yes, yes, it is.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
I wouldn't say that it was because it was a fast-paced book that wanted me to go like that. Like I wanted to know more. I really just wanted more smut. That's really all it was.
Yeah, I think it's more about chasing the smut parts because the rest of the plot and the dialogue were just not it.
No, and I'm sorry if that's a wrong way of putting it for these types of books, but that's my only context. Again, I'm new. Educate me if I'm doing it wrong. That's fine.
Let us know.
Let me know. So this whole scale, how are we going to scale these?
Take it or leave it, or banish it. Um,
It
so
also
I
goes
like that.
to our one of our favorite shows, Rent. So there's
Yep,
that.
100%. Thank you for
So
saying that.
you're welcome. Take it means, ooh, girl, you need to go get it.
Read
Get it.
it.
Oh, it's gonna change you in some way, shape, or form. Take it or leave it. Has its flaws. It has its good. It's up to you and your preference. Leave it. Don't even bother. Like it's just she garbage.
Like, don't even like pirate it. Like, don't do it.
So, Christina,
All
I
right.
before.
All right. So then, on our formal book club scale, I would say, I think overall it was fun. And if you really like Greek mythology, this would lean into more, maybe leave it. But if you're just here for a good time and maybe some fun smut and like some cool characters with not much development, I would give this a take it or leave it. I think it really just depends on what you're looking for because I do think there are things for people in this story. You know, if our leave it criteria is there's nothing for you, leave that book in the trash, we will tell you. And I do think there are things that, you know, the fact that you said we read it so fast because we were chasing those exciting parts says a lot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact that I absolutely would not read the rest of the series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I would have to agree with you. Take it or leave it. If you are into this genre, and you know, you're not here for the complex characters, you're not here for the complex story, you're just here for sexy times, um, then yes, do it, take it or leave it. But again, just note the contingency of like if you're looking for something more than smutty sexy goodness, you're not gonna get it, my love. I do want to say again that this is something that's going to be happening monthly. And since we're still launching our socials, I am going to announce our next book. And our next book is my choice, and it's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Read? I'm going to say read. I committed.
Now it
Um,
is.
long alas, here we are. I really want to tell you to take something rather than be a take it or leave it or leave it. So here's hoping. I hear good things. And yeah, so Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Let's go, baby.
Follow us on our socials. That's evilly.yours.english at all the things.
Thanks, y'all, for joining us. We'll catch you next week.
In our regular complain and explain. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Thanks for listening.
I know.